Salvete! Welcome to Latin via Lectionary, a short Latin lesson drawn from the Sunday Mass readings. I'm Sean Burns of Latin via Liturgy, and I'm happy to share this week's lesson with you. Today, the 20th Sunday in Ordinary Time, from chapter 15 of St. Matthew's Gospel, the Canaanite woman. In this passage, we'll see an example of the infinitive used as the subject. And so we'll review that concept, as well as a brief review of the four primary uses of the infinitive. Let's take a look. Non est bonum sumere panem filiorum et mittere canibus. It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs. Take a look at the two infinitives in this sentence, sumere and mittere, both present active infinitives and both subjects of the verb est. Non est bonum sumere, it is not good to take, and non est bonum mittere, it is not good to throw. So let's review the subject infinitive a little more closely. When we say non est bonum, we have an impersonal use of the verb to be there, along with a neuter adjective, and very often the verb to be with a neuter adjective will take an infinitive as its subject. What is it that's not good? Sumere is not good, to take the children's food. We have it in a delayed sense in the Latin. The English, we could allow us to put sumere first. We could say to take the children's food is not good. We could even say taking the children's food is not good, although Latin does not allow us to use a gerund in the nominative case there. So Latin uses the infinitive for any of these things that you might want to say in English. We can also see the subject infinitive with other impersonal verbs, such as licet and oportet. We see it often with the verb phrase necesse est, it is necessary, which really is no different than bonum est, it is good. It's an adjective along with the verb to be, but it's treated almost like a formula where we think of it necesse est as an impersonal verb phrase. So that's your subject infinitive, an impersonal verb, often with a neuter adjective, and then the infinitive filling in what it is that matches up with that adjective that does not have a noun in the proper sense along with it. The infinitive, of course, is a verbal noun, so it does have a noun with it, but not a typical noun the way we think of things. Really quickly to review what I think are the four primary uses of the infinitive, and there are others, but these are the four most common. The subject infinitive we just addressed. The complementary infinitive, probably the most straightforward. That time when several verbs seem to need an infinitive to finish their thought. Last week we saw cumque pisset mergi, when he had begun to sink, although I think the English translation was more beginning to sink. We would say choipisset takes the infinitive. To begin to do what? Potest to be another common one. He is able to do something, and many others. The complementary infinitive is probably the most straightforward and simple of the uses of the infinitive. We have indirect statement. We discussed indirect statement as in church use very commonly using quia and turning into a clause with a finite verb, but classical Latin and even some church Latin, as we'll see next Sunday, quem dicunt homines esse filium hominis, whom do people say that the Son of Man is? So that accusative with the infinitive following a verb of speaking or knowing, that sort of thing. The indirect statement. And finally, certain verbs of ordering and teaching often take an infinitive. They take another accusative with the infinitive in a different sense than indirect statement. An object of the verb of ordering, let's say, along with an infinitive of what that object is being ordered to do. Domine iube me ad te venire, again from last week. Lord, order me to come to you. Or doce nos orare, teach us to pray. So there are your four most common uses of the infinitive. Let's take a look one more time to review this week's subject infinitive. Non est bonum sumere, panem filiorum, et mittere canibus. It is not good to take the food of the children and to throw it to dogs. So sumere and mittere, subject infinitives of est. That was in today's gospel reading. Every week in Mass, we hear another example of the subject infinitive. Vere dignum et iustum est. Nos tibi semper et ubique gratias agere. It is truly right and just, always and everywhere, to give you thanks. So that to give you thanks is the subject. It is what is right and just. We hear that every week, and that's really a great example of the subject infinitive that hopefully you can use to help understand that concept. Thank you for joining me for this week's short Latin lesson. Please come back next week for another lesson from the Sunday Mass readings. Valete et bonam Dominicam.